Well, we finally got it. The much anticipated crossover that fans of this show have been eagerly anticipating since the series' inception finally transpired in the most recent episode of Better Call Saul, aptly titled Breaking Bad. Now, this may be an unpopular opinion, but I honestly was never really one of those people that needed a Walt and Jesse fix in this show. Of course, them showing up was awesome, but I could take it or leave it. This show is a phenomenal piece of art that has proven time and time again that it can stand on its own two legs and deliver layered character drama without having to rely on the nostalgia of Breaking Bad, and at this point has surpassed the series that spawned it in terms of quality, in my opinion. I'll repeat that in case you didn't hear me. In my opinion. So in this breakdown video, I'm not really going to be devoting a lot of time to the long-awaited return of everyone's favorite meth couple, but rather the thematic parallels that both ongoing storylines in this episode shared with each other, and how it all fits under the actual meaning of the phrase Breaking Bad, instead of that title simply being a reference to Walt and Jesse making an appearance and nothing more. It is pretty cool, however, that this title is also a nod to Saul's first appearance in Breaking Bad being in an episode called Better Call Saul. Anywho, let's get into the analysis. I was really glad to see a fairly even split between storylines in this episode in terms of screen time. Although that split did lean a bit more in favor of the Gene timeline, that does make sense though, as the Gene timeline is the one that will inevitably be wrapping up the entire show. So naturally, we're going to spend more time over in Grayscale, Omaha during this home stretch of the series. Despite telling two incredibly different stories across both timelines in this episode, they were also very similar in terms of theme. Both storylines featured Jimmy, Breaking Bad. See what I mean when I'm constantly singing this show's praises? This episode could have easily gotten away with being the fan service episode with heavy Walt and Jesse screen time, but instead we got something far more elevated. Before going back and forth between narratives, however, we get what is easily one of the best cold opens in the entire show. Ever since it was announced that Walt and Jesse were going to be showing up for the final season, I just knew it would have something to do with the night they kidnapped Saul, and we would witness that moment from his perspective this time. I had a strong feeling that it would play out this way, due in large part to the fact that that sequence is so important to Better Call Saul, in that two of the show's main characters were birthed from a throwaway line from this exact scene. Now, I'm certainly not the only person who thought this would be the case, but I'm really glad we all turned out to be right. Even with me expecting it, that opening was absolutely phenomenal. Everything I wanted and more. Alright, so let's jump into these two different narratives that are playing out over the course of the episode. In the Gene timeline, we finally get to see the payoff from that cold open in Season 4, Episode 5's Quite a Ride. Saul had told Francesca to be at a specific spot for a presumably important phone call.
And where are you going to be November 12th at 3 p.m.?
I'll be there, but if it doesn't ring at 3 on the dot, I'm gone.
Don't worry, it's going to ring.
And as it turns out, it's a phone call from him. They talk about a few different matters, all dealing with the fallout of Breaking Bad's ending. Two things stuck out to me in this exchange, more than others. One, we finally got to find out what happened to Huel after Breaking Bad.
Back home in New Orleans. DEA held him under false pretenses or something, so last I heard he walked.
And it seems like the man got as happy an ending as he could have hoped for. And two, Kim is alive and well in Titusville, Florida. What's more, she even asked about Jimmy. And that little piece of news is enough for him to try and reach out to her right after he hangs up with Francesca. We can only assume that this is the first time since their breakup that they've spoken to each other, and what a damn conversation it turns out to be. We don't get to hear a single word of it, and honestly I can't say I'm surprised at this decision from the showrunners, but we do get an unfiltered look at Gene's body language, and he's very clearly and visibly angered. He throws a tantrum and even breaks the glass of the phone booth and then leaves the scene with a look of tangible frustration on his face. And with that, so begins Gene's tragic downward spiral. Back in Walt and Jesse's trailer, in the timeline where Technicolor was invented, we get to see more of that kidnapping scene that we weren't privy to before. It was really cool seeing a behind-the-scenes look at Walt before he was in his prime, and the entire conversation between the three characters played out perfectly. Not too much, not too little. The showrunners really made sure to pull off Walt and Jesse's return without it seeming forced. Jesse asks Saul who the hell Lalo is, and we can see the pain and sadness on Saul's face as he recalls those memories for a couple of fleeting moments. We never once saw him like this in Breaking Bad, so this was really awesome to see. Honestly, not much else really happens in this timeline as opposed to the Gene timeline in this episode. Naturally so, as like I said before, that timeline will be the one to close out this series, so the plot needs to advance more rapidly over in Black and White Land. The main takeaway from the Walt and Jesse storyline in this episode is Saul's conflicted nature. He meets Walt and Jesse and his eyes all but transform into dollar signs. He sees an easy opportunity to make a ton of money, but is also told by Mike that his best course of action would be to steer clear.
Well, listen, even if this guy was going to live, I wouldn't go near him. He's a complete amateur.
Despite the warning, and knowing that there is at least some truth in said warning, Saul decides to pursue this lucrative business opportunity.
Well, you see an amateur, I see 170 pounds of clay ready to be molded.
He knows it probably isn't the best idea, as we see him mull it over for a little while, but money talks at the end of the day. We're treated to a super cool sequence in which we get to witness the moments leading up to Saul dropping in on Walt at school, which I thought was awesome. Nothing else really happens in this narrative, but nothing else needs to happen. The point is that Saul broke bad by making the decision that he did. Hey, remember the title of the episode? Everything that transpires across both ongoing narratives here only serves to feed into the theme and meaning of the phrase breaking bad. As someone who does a good bit of screenwriting, I can't help but give props when I spot writing that's as well thought out as this episode's was. So how's Gene holding up after that phone call? Not really well, as it turns out. Kim has always been his Achilles heel, and that once again proves to be true here. Whatever transpired over that phone call with her was enough to send Gene spiraling, as he shows right back up at Jeff's house and starts hatching schemes with him again. And mind you, remember Gene's parting words to Jeff last time they spoke?
We're done. Say it.
To his credit, though, the scam he comes up with this time around is pretty clever and well thought out. For a while, it proves lucrative as we get a brief montage showing us the spoils of the scheme: money, hookers, and more money. But it all goes south when Jeff's friend Buddy refuses to scam one of the marks when he finds out the man has cancer.
No, man. I can't do that. I can't.
Recalling that his own dad took the same pills he found in the man's pocket back when he had cancer and presumably died from it. Gene is pissed. Still in his delusional, self-destructive state over the fallout of the phone call, he kicks Buddy out, not before warning him to keep his mouth shut, and he and Jeff drive over to the Mark's house. At this point, now even Jeff is a little wary and uncomfortable with the situation. And I almost forgot to bring up Marion. She's suspicious now herself, as she caught a glimpse of Gene and Buddy walking into that garage in the dead of night after being alerted by the dogs barking. It's likely only a matter of time before she starts connecting some dots. So Gene breaks the glass of the Mark's door, opens it, and the episode ends right as he walks in. Classic cliffhanger ending. But again, the point of what we saw is that Gene broke bad. This narrative is a lot more complex than the other one, as we have no clue what exactly transpired over the phone call with Kim, aside from the fact that it couldn't have been anything good judging from Gene's immediate reaction and his subsequent behavior. The consequences of this return to Slip and Jimmy are surely not going to be anything mild, and at this point there's pretty much no way this series has a happy ending, especially with the title of the finale having been revealed. I won't spoil it here for those who want to stay in the dark, but you can easily look it up if you're curious. I really loved how thematically bound this episode was and how it served us something far more elevated than just the fan service that the phenomenal cold open teased. It gave us a harsh reminder that Jimmy can never truly change, that he will always revert back to Slip and Jimmy as a coping mechanism. Kim was the only one keeping him in check, but even then, simultaneously, she wasn't that great for him either. And for all the shitty treatment Chuck gave to his younger brother, he was never once wrong about him. It was so damn frustrating for me to witness Gene self-sabotage so fast and so hard after getting off the phone, but it tracks. It's sadly perfectly in line for his character. We've only got 2 episodes left, and I've never been so anxious to see how the story wraps up. One final note before I end the video. The cinematography in this show has always been top-notch, but the transitions we got in this episode as we jump back and forth between narratives were fucking incredible. The one in the desert, where Gene is lying on his bed and that shot fades in over the grave Walt and Jesse had dug, was jaw-dropping. I really hope that's not foreshadowing, but we'll just have to wait and see. Thank you guys so much for watching, as always. If you dug the analysis, drop a quick like, and consider hitting the subscribe button on your way out if you like what I do. Take care of yourselves, guys, and until next time, peace out.